You have Jalen Carter at 5 to Seattle, and it's very difficult when you're as talented as Jalen Carter to have a pro day as poor as the one that he supposedly had. That's all I'm hearing is he looked out of shape. He looked uninterested. That's what you hear. Then you hear stories that he's taken off of draft boards. Okay. I find that one hard to believe, but there is the reason why he left the combine as well, facing charges locally about somebody being killed in what appears to be
two people in
right?
a car accident.
In a car accident. So there's everything together. And then, this is my long windup, Drew Rosenhaus tells our friend Adam Schefter, hey, we're only visiting teams that have a top 10 pick. So if there's anybody out there saying he's fallen out of the top 10, guess what? You're out of the top 10. You're falling out of the Jalen Carter business, which is a fascinating way to spin things. What are you hearing about Jalen Carter right now as we're sitting here almost 3 weeks before the draft?
I think there may be some teams that will take him off their board, and I think there will be a lot of other teams who will say this guy is just too gifted for us to pass on an opportunity. You're going to see him at a value. The fact that he would not be in the top 4. The people I talked to said when they watched Georgia in 2021, that was a defense that had 3 first-round defensive linemen, including the first pick of the draft. This was the most talented of all of them. This guy was. And the issues off the field, I think, are legitimate concerns. But how many times have we seen the NFL have character questions on guys and give those guys a second chance or another chance? One of the people he's been compared to for a long time is a former colleague of yours, Warren Sapp. They're from the same place. They grew up in the same place. Like Warren Sapp, he basically was a tight end before he really became a defensive lineman. Warren Sapp fell in the draft. I don't think the team that drafted him felt like they regretted taking him. They won a Super Bowl.
I should say he's in their Ring of Honor.
Yeah. So I think people look at him and Carter and be like, there's nobody else like him in this draft. And there isn't. There's a bunch of good quarterbacks. I think there's a bunch of really good cornerbacks, and there's some good edge rushers. There's nobody in there like him. I mean, Pete Carroll gets him, and if he's right, and there's an if, but, is he Cortez Kennedy for them? I mean, Cortez Kennedy did not have the character question marks, but he was, he came from junior college. He was, when he got to Miami, and then he kind of exploded in that last year. It's a different, he had a different arc than what Jalen Carter has had. But if you get Jalen Carter and all of a sudden now Jalen Carter feels like he's got a chip on his shoulder because he wants to prove something, look out, because, you name the coach who played him, they're all like, if he didn't want to be blocked, nobody was blocking him. He was just different.
So what are you hearing out of Georgia about the charges that he is facing? What do you know about that you can share?
Right now there are misdemeanors. I think there are some concerns just from a maturity standpoint. One of the things you had heard was just like, the guy who coached him, the D-line coach, was like, look, he has a chip on his shoulder, but a lot of defensive linemen do. And they did not have, from the people I talked to there, like big red flags on him.
They did not have red flags on him.
At Georgia, no. Now, there was definitely some maturity challenges that they were navigating. But honestly, Georgia did not. That's one of the few places that was so stacked in the D-line room. If Jalen Carter was going to be such a locker room problem, I really do believe they would not have kept him around and he would not have played. Now, he did play this past year with a high ankle. He hurt it almost in the beginning of the game against Oregon. And I think 2022's film was not as impressive as 2021. Because, like I said, he was not healthy for a bunch of it. But I just think you look at the stuff that he is capable of doing and has done, he's going to be tough to pass up if you're the Seahawks sitting there at number 5 and you're looking to say, hey, we can get a dominant defensive lineman who you look at who's playing in the Super Bowl, whether you have Chris Jones or Fletcher Cox or some of these guys who previously, he's not Aaron Donald because he's different size, but elite defensive linemen are not that easy to find that they're that much of a difference maker.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.